हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू जियोस्पोटिका। आज हम इस टॉपिक में बात करेंगे इंडिया एंड फ्रांस के रिलेशनशिप के बारे में। क्या बात करेंगे? हाउ इंडिया एंड फ्रांस हैज मेंटेन्ड ए वेरी स्टेबल एंड ए वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग रिलेशनशिप थ्रू आउट द डेज ऑफ वेरी वोलाटाइल जियोपॉलिटिकल डेज। जब मैं वोलाटाइल जियोपॉलिटिकल डेज का बात करता हूँ, देन I am going back to the days of the Cold War. So Cold War days कब start हुआ था? The days of Cold War actually began just after the end of the Second World War. The Second World War end हुआ था 1945 में. After 1945 the world was divided into two poles. Two poles में क्यों divided हुआ था? On the basis of ideology. There was an ideological battle between the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States was following the ideology of capitalism and the Soviet Union was following the ideology of socialism. So, when the United States started following the ideology of capitalism, then all the Western European nations compelled to follow that ideology because there was a reason behind that. What was that reason? The reason was very simple because the United States was helping Europe to recover from the economical debacle that actually happened as a result of the World War II. So at that time, the United States was providing money or support or any kinds of support to the Western European countries under the Marshall Plan. And during the time of the Second World War, the United States has provided huge amounts of money to the Western European countries under the Land Lease Act. So, the Western European countries were under the influence of the huge debt that was provided by the United States. So, उन लोगों को follow ही करना था. But when we came for the ideology of the Soviet Union, तब क्या हुआ था? The Soviet Union का ideology ज़्यादातर the Eastern European countries में, Caucasus में and Central Asian countries में follow किया जाता था. So at that time, the Soviet Union actually forced these countries to follow the ideology of socialism. There were so many countries in the Eastern Europe, those who were not ready to go and follow for the ideology of socialism. So that is why there was discontent among the countries, and that is why in 1991 the Soviet Union actually disintegrated in several parts, in several countries. After the disintegrations of the Soviet Union, the world actually saw the unipolar world. So throughout that time period, the India's relationship with France was very much stable. Why that was stable? The main reason behind the stable relationship was strategic autonomy, because both of that countries was advocating the strategic autonomy. Both of them was not interested to accept any of this ideology, either the ideology of capitalism or ideology of socialism. Although the France was under the influence of the United States, but at that time in 1966, the France president decided to withdraw France from NATO's membership, but it actually did not happen. The negotiations happened between France and the United States, and after that, the France never get out of the NATO after that event. And after the end of the Second World War, the India got the independence from the United Kingdom. As a result, India knew that how does it feel being lived under the influence of someone else. So that is why India created its own ideology with the help of the other leaders. With the help of the leaders of Yugoslavia, then Indonesia, then Egypt. So what was that group that Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru formed? That was the non-aligned movement. The India formed the non-aligned movement not to follow the ideology either of the United States or the Soviet Union. But India was under the influence of the Soviet Union because after the end of the Second World War, when the Britain left India or India got independence from Britain in 1947, the Britain almost destroyed the economy of India. As a result, India needed to follow the ideology of socialism. But India was not ready to follow the socialism entirely. As a result, India ने क्या किया? India कुछ ideological facts capitalism से भी लिया और कुछ facts, ज़्यादातर facts socialism से लिया. So after that, India mixed those things and the make an economy called the mixed economy. That is why India is called the mixed economy. That is an unique country which has the influence of capitalistic society and the socialistic things, whatever required to be provided to make the country great again. So that is why India's influence during those days on the France and the France's influence on India was at a balanced position. So India's relationship with France and India's relationship with others was at the different par. India जो भी किया था during the days of Cold War was actually supported by France or never opposed by the France. If France was not ready to support it but never opposed the India's position. As a result, when in 1971, when India invaded eastern Pakistan and liberated it and created a new nation, Bangladesh, then France did not raise his voice against India. But at that time, United States, United Kingdom and other Western European powers actually came up in support of Western Pakistan, which was genociding the peoples of their own people, which are killing their own people in the Eastern Pakistan in the name of ideology, in the name of sovereignty, in the name of democracy. But that country, the Western Pakistan, was never a democratic state. It was an kleptocratic state. Why? Because it was ruled, it is also being ruled in today's time by the military. By the military means the head of the army is ruling the Pakistan even today. So that is why the France never opposed the India stand on Bangladesh. But at that time, India have to take the help from the Soviet Union, because at that time United Nations was ready to protect Pakistan. And to protect Pakistan, they were ready to attack Pakistan. So as a result, the Soviet Union sent nuclear submarine in Indian Ocean region and shoo away the ships, those were sent by the United States and the United Kingdom. So India's relationship with France was very much stable at all the time. And something happened in the 1998. What happened in the 1998 that changed the geopolitics of South Asia? That India became the nuclear state, as well as the Pakistan also became the nuclear state. When India became the nuclear state, the Western countries imposed heavy sanction against the Indian economy, and they tried to destroy the Indian economy, they tried to divert the Indian economy, they tried to dismantle the Indian economy. Here the they means the United States and the countries, those who are supporting the United States to take action, to impose different kinds of sanction against the Indian economy and against the interest of India. So what were the countries that were supporting the United States to impose the sanction on India? The countries that were supporting the United States primarily was the United Kingdom. Why they were so afraid of India's rise being the nuclear power? There was only one reason. Because India was the 7th largest landmass in the world and still is, and India was the second populous state after China at that time. As a result, India had the potentials of becoming the power in the South Asian region. If India will become the power in the South Asian region, then the influence of the United Kingdom and the United States would come under the jeopardy. Why? Because United States and the United Kingdom exercise their power by using Pakistan as a tool. How do they use Pakistan as a tool? Then we have to go back to the days of 1979. What happened in the 1979? In 1979, the United States and the United Kingdom and the other Western powers helped Pakistan and give them billions of dollars. Why Pakistan was given billions of dollars? There was a reason behind it. The reason was the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. In 1979, Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in order to challenge the hegemony of the United States in the South Asian region. As a result, the United States wanted to fight against the Soviet Union, not directly, but using the proxies like Pakistan. Then they gave billions of dollars to Pakistan to create jihadi organization in Pakistan and produce jihadists to fight against the Soviet forces. As a result, the several jihadi organizations and the jihadists were created by Pakistan. But in 1989, when Soviet Union left Afghanistan, then what happened to those jihadists? Then Pakistan diverted those jihadists towards Indian Kashmir. And they also diverted those jihadists to conduct several terrorist organizations on Indian mainland. As a result, several terrorist attacks happened at that time. But even at that time, the French peoples were standing with India. In 1998, something spectacular happened in the India's history. Because in 1998, the French President Jacques Chirac visited India and he was the chief guest of 26 January Republic Day parade. With his visit to India, France upgraded its relationship with India from normal level to strategic level. Following the upgradations of relationship between India and France, India started buying French defense goods. What was the reason behind that? Because India at that time was buying all of its defense goods from Russia, and India was compelled to buy all of its goods from the Russian market because most of the European powers and the United States was reluctant to sell their defense goods to India. But when India upgraded its relationship with France, the French agreed to sell all of its defense goods, almost all of it except nuclear weapons, to India because the French weapons were independent of American influence or any influence of any other European countries. Because the French goods were indigenous in nature, they were producing at that time, they were independent in nature. That is why India bought Mirage 200, Dassault Rafale and the various other defense goods from the French market. And India has agreed to buy different kinds of other goods in the near futures that we will going to talk about. Following the visit of the Jacques Chirac, there were several other presidents of France visited India, and there were several other presidents who became the chief guest of 26th January Republic Day. And the Emmanuel Macron is the latest examples of that. The recent visit of Emmanuel Macron will going to change the face of the relationship between India and France. It will also going to change the geopolitics of South Asia permanently. And to a great extent, it will also going to change the geopolitics of the world. Now it raises two questions. Why it will going to change the geopolitics in several parts of the world, and how it will going to change the geopolitics. Because the recent visit has been described by the Emmanuel Macron itself that there are no limits to potential cooperation between these two nations. And in this visit, the President has signed several memorandum of understanding focusing on air, space, maritime and land warfare, also in the robotics and the artificial intelligence. And in today's time, we are seeing the extreme influence of robotics and the artificial intelligence in every sectors, starting from the education, healthcare, and very much in the defense sector. डिफेंस सेक्टर में रोबोटिक्स एंड द आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस के एग्जाम्पल्स क्या होता है? द यूज ऑफ अनमैन्ड एरियल व्हीकल. द अनमैन्ड एरियल व्हीकल्स इज बेसिकली ए फ्लाइंग रोबोट्स. It is being used with the help of the artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is being used to make that robot to working solo, the working without the help of the human beings. So that is why the use of the artificial intelligence has become predominant in today's time. We have already talked about the artificial intelligence. Now we will going to talk about the space industry. What India and the France signed in the sectors of space. The new Space India Limited has signed a memorandum of understanding with France's Arianespace on satellite launches. Here one question arises. India have Indian Space Research Organization, which is ISRO. So with the help of the ISRO, India can launch space satellites. But why India do need the help from Arianespace? Here the answer is the ISRO do have the capability of launching of satellites of a certain weight. But when a satellite crosses the limits of that weight, then the Indian Space Research Organization lose their ability to launch that satellites because of that weight. That is why, because the Indian Space Research Organization do not have the launch vehicles, but the Arianespace have. That is why India do take the help from the Arianespace. And to solidify the relationship between ISRO and the Arianespace, and not in this case not ISRO, it is a subsidiary of ISRO which is called the New Space India Limited, has signed that memorandum of understanding. Now those who do not have an idea what is NSIL or New Space India Limited is, let me tell you what is it all about. This is an organization which is responsible for producing, assembling and integrating the launch vehicle with the help of the industrial consortium. So here the NSIL is actually to help the startup organizations, those who have get itself involved into the space startups. It was established on March 6, 2019 under the administration control of the Department of Space and the Company Act of 2013. And this organization was created with an objective of scale up private sector participation in the Indian space program. It also have other objectives. The objectives like manufacturing of small satellite launch vehicle and the manufacturing of polar satellite launch vehicle. And these organizations also worked as a middleman to transfer the technology from ISRO to the private players. And in 2022, the NSIL executed a contract with the OneWeb to launch the 36 lower Earth orbit satellites for the purpose of providing internet. And why OneWeb actually took the help from the NSIL? Because OneWeb was supposed to launch their satellites with the help of the Russian systems, but due to the sanctions on the Russia, that contract were cancelled. That is why the NSIL come into that highlights and launch the satellites for the OneWeb. The OneWeb is an internet providing company based in the United Kingdom. And this organization has also gave the contract to the NSIL to launch another pair of 36 more satellites. And it was launched on 26 March 2023. The space deal between India and France actually spooks India's northern neighbor China. Why China is spooked? Because China thinks whatever the technology France will going to provide to India, that India will going to use against China and will going to kill Chinese influence in the region. And as a result, the Chinese president has urged to break the new ground to give a flip to the China-French ties. And also the Macron visit to India coincides with 68th anniversary of diplomatic relationship between China and France. And in his message on these occasions, the Xi Jinping, the president, said, "As today the world is once again at a critical crossroad, China and France should jointly open up a path of peace, security, prosperity and human progress for human development." And he has also added that opportunity to uphold fundamental principles, break new ground, build on past achievements, open up new future and make China-France comprehensive strategic partnership more solid and dynamic. Here you can see that the China has talked about peace, security, prosperity and the human progress. But do you really think China do have the right to talk about peace, security, prosperity, or human progress, or anything related to the human? A nation which is responsible for eliminating its own populations. They have eliminated millions of Uyghurs in Xinjiang regions. They have eliminated millions of Tibetans in Tibet, and also some of the populations in the inner Mongolian regions. They are changing the demography of their own country by eliminating the indigenous populations of different regions. Then how on earth they are talking about the peace, prosperity? They are talking about or raising these issues because they are scared about India's diplomatic moves. The Indian diplomatic moves in recent time has damaged different countries, that includes China. China do not want India to take its position. China was aiming to be the superpower of the world. And now India is replacing China from its positions. They are now in the position of second, next to the United States. That is why they are desperate to mend their relationship with the Western countries, because the Western countries were there when the China needed them most in 1990s. And even after the 2000s, the Western countries were there for the China to help them to import the Chinese goods, the cheap Chinese goods, which was fragile in nature. Even then, the Western countries imported their goods. But now, after the COVID-19, everything changed. And now the China is very scared of India's move. Why China is so scared? Because what happened in 2020, that makes them scared. In 2020, during the peak of COVID-19, the Chinese soldiers tried to invade Indian land through eastern and the northern Ladakh. And they met Indian soldiers in the Galwan point, the Galwan valley. And the Indian soldiers in a hand-to-hand battle killed 60 of the Chinese soldiers. As a result, the Chinese top leadership got scared that what India is capable of doing and what India can do when there is questions raised regarding the protections of the motherland, then what Indian soldiers is capable of doing. So the integrity, the Chinese were tried to break the integrity of India, but they failed to do so. But they failed to demoralize India. So that is why they are very much scared of India's move in this region. Now the Chinese leadership wants to placate the relationship with the Western countries. And by placating the relationship with the Western countries, they want to increase the engagement, the business engagements. But the time has gone for China. Chinese ke liye time has gone, because the China had the chance to mend their relationship during the time of COVID-19, but they took the advantage of the COVID-19 and they tried to earn billions by exploiting the Western societies. कैसे उन लोगों ने Western societies को exploit करने की कोशिश की? उन लोगों ने mask and the different other materials, those who were required during the time of COVID, उन सारे चीज को Western countries को बेचा at exorbitant prices. So that is why the Western countries stopped believing in China. And when Indian government started producing the same goods at half of that rate and providing those goods to the Western countries, then the Western countries realizes their mistakes, what they were doing. They mend their relationship with China during the time of 1970s. So for the 15 years, whatever the mistakes they were continuously making, now they are trying to mend their own mistakes. The Western countries are now trying to disengage with China. And the Chinese leadership is also very much in a very concerning position, because the Indian government is engaging with the Western countries in the manufacturing of defense goods in India. Recently, the Airbus helicopters based in France said it will partner with the Tata Group to establish a final assembly line for the helicopters in India. What was that helicopters? The deal has been done to produce the Airbus H125, What is Airbus H125? This helicopter is also called the Eurocopter AS350. This is a single engine helicopter, basically for the civilian purpose. It can be used for the policing, for the hospitals, to transfer the patients, and in the hospitality industries. So therefore, these are the things that India is doing by engaging itself, by engaging its organizations with the Western organizations that China is very much concerned of. China do not want the Western countries to come in India, because two things happens. When the Western countries will come to India, then the technology of the Western countries will be transferred to the Indian companies. And after that, Indian economy will going to get benefited. What the China used to get before the COVID-19, the same thing will happen to India. The Western companies started investing billions of dollars in India. That will going to increase their economy, increase the size of the Indian economy. So therefore, they are very much scared of the India's rise. Now this is the end of the topic. Now friends, we have two websites. One is www.geopolitics.com and the another one is www.geopolitica.com. If you are interested of reading editorials and different kinds of other news regarding science, sports, so you can visit these websites. So thank you very much. Thank you for your support.